Welcome to Disability Book Week Superstar Authors. I am your host, Kelly M. Likes. Let's set the scene. I am here today. I am wearing my cat dress. My children say there's cats on it. I don't see it, but I'm not going to argue with them. I'm sitting in front of a shelf of my favorite books. I've got a string of balloons over on that side. I got my favorite dragon and my favorite bumblebee. And we are here today with superstar author Sabina Nordqvist. And she is wearing, looks like a gray sweater. She's got her hair pulled up on a bun on top of her head. It's just really, really cute. And on the back wall, she has color coded books. It's like a rainbow and it's beautiful. So, Sabina, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's nice to meet you.
Awesome. Well, tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am the author of It's All in Your Head, which is my debut novel. I will talk about that in a minute if you want. I started writing when I got chronic pain over a decade ago. I stopped being able to kind of like use my brain in the same way that I used to, and also started losing the ability to walk. So I was going to this chronic pain rehab program that was kind of traumatic and very, your pain is in your mind. And so I started writing fan fiction and some original stuff to sort of process what I was going through with pain, and eventually realized, like, hey, I'm actually not that bad at this. I really enjoy writing. It became like a new hobby. And as I acquired more disabilities over the years, I started writing more stories where like giving everybody sort of one of the disabilities. So that's kind of how I started writing, and yeah, I just kind of have not been able to let it go because it's been really fun, and I've made so many good friends online in the writing community and the online writing disability community. So yeah, this is my debut. It's All in Your Head, which came out in February. And it's available on paperback, ebook, and duet narration audio.
Awesome. All right. So how did for as far as your writing process, how did it go to thoughts in your head? I really need to get these out to holding your book in your hand. What was your process?
Yeah, for this specific book, it was a 6 year process. I am kind of a person who likes to brainstorm a lot before I write. I used to be more of a pantser than a plotter, and I'm kind of like in the middle now where I like to have my story beats settled before I start writing. And usually I'll get like a kernel of an idea, and then I spend a lot of time doing nothing because I'm flared up a lot and sick. So I spend just a lot of time thinking about my book, and so I'm often jotting down just literally like thousands of notes. And so by the time I start writing a novel, I usually have like a novel's worth of notes ready, and then I go through and I organize them, and then I also am disabled in my hands, so I dictate to write. So I use dragon dictation, and I basically try to write a very clean first draft, and that usually works because I have taken so many, notes, but I'm still a discovery writer, like from one point to the next. It's more like, oh, I have this little piece of dialogue that I like. How can I expand this into a scene or something like that? And then after that, sort of the fun dies down because it's really hard to edit with dictation. But the end product is worth it, so I just keep going. And for this specific book, I wrote it from 2020 until 2021, and then at the end of 2021 started querying. At the beginning of 2022, signed with my agent on sub, 2 years on sub, sold in 2024 to Grand Central, and then it just came out exactly 2 years after the deal. So it has been a long ride to get here.
It sounds like an amazing adventure. So you got to tell me a little bit about your book.
Yeah. So it's all in your head. I call it a spoony romance. For those people who are not familiar with that term, a spoony is sort of a fond term related to spoon theory, which is just a way that people who are chronically ill, who have energy limiting conditions, refer to themselves. So it's a way of measuring energy that we have throughout the day and energy pacing. But so essentially, it's a disability romance because both of the main characters are disabled. Pike, my Pike right here, uses cane like I do, and has been recently injured in a snowboarding accident because he's a pro snowboarder. And then Skylar has intracranial hypertension and POTS like I do. And the premise is Skylar is running this online chronic pain support group. So she's a mod, and she has two enough on relationships because she has spent a lot of time with, unfortunately, men and family members who constantly tell her that she's too much because of her disability, and she's, worked on that and knows that she deserves more. And so she just kind of decided, like, I'm not wasting my time, dating people if they're not, interested in all of me. But then she's in this group and she starts noticing this hot new guy, which is Pike. And he's kind of broody, secretive. He's very good looking, and he posts this sort of venting poetry that he writes about chronic pain. So she's like super intrigued by him. And then something chaotic happens in this support group, and because she's a mod, she feels like it's her duty to step in. And so she pretends to be his boyfriend, his girlfriend, and but he's not online when this happens. And then he finds out in the morning, is justifiably upset, and then convinces her that she needs to actually fake date him in real life. So they meet, and they think it's just going to be two simple dates, but she doesn't know that he's a former pro Olympic snowboarder. And very soon the media catches on to their steam, and of course they're not going to tell anybody it's fake. So it follows lots of romance beats and has lots of tropes, like only one bed and caught in a snowstorm and a secret celebrity, but it also has a lot of commentary and insight into public perceptions of disabled people, of ableism towards disabled people, because pretty much everybody in this book in the friend group is disabled. So they spend time talking about things that disabled people talk about a lot, which often tends to be ableism and medical gaslighting and things like that. So it's a way of looking at a lot of realistic day-to-day life for people with chronic pain, while also getting a lot of swoons and spice and a guaranteed happily ever after.
I absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. All right. What advice would you give to someone who has a story that they think needs to be told? What advice would you give for them?
You start it. Like, I think that's the hardest thing. I mean, starting and finishing, because you can get to the middle and it can be difficult as well. But I think a lot of people want to write a book, and a lot of people have really good ideas, but not most people don't actually finish writing it. So I think if you can get it down, even if it's not perfect, everybody always says you can't edit a blank draft, right? So even if you write it, you don't think it's perfect, you can always perfect it later. So I think that's the biggest thing. And then also just allowing yourself time. If it's not coming out as quickly as you want, if it's not as perfect as you want, if your health gets in the way, like, there will always be obstacles to finishing novels and editing them. So the main thing, I think, is starting and then finding a way of how can I work with whatever my life circumstance is in order to get it done so that I can eventually put it out there.
I love that. All right, it is my favorite part of the interview. Will you please share your favorite part of the book? You don't have to read it, but just your favorite part or favorite scene, the scene you love the most from your book.
I think it's really hard to pick my absolute favorite scene without it being super spoilery or a little too spicy. So I picked something that I thought other people who are maybe tuning into the disability aspect might appreciate. So one of the things that is my favorite part of the novel is the way that Skylar and Pike and their friends are able to finally learn how to let their guards down and how to be vulnerable with each other. So there's like this small quote where Skylar says, occasionally I wonder if I'm missing out on something, if I should give relationships another chance, but then I see all the depressing posts in the group and it reminds me, relationships don't work when you're sick. If society hasn't already convinced you that you're a burden, a relationship will. Instead of practicing self-love, you change so that they'll keep loving you. You convince yourself to play down your concerns because it's more important to make the relationship work than to honor who you are. I refuse to do that again because I know my worth. And so Skylar starts out with this sort of misbelief that, it's too difficult to be in a relationship if you're sick. And it's not that she thinks that she's a burden, but other people believe that she's a burden. And I love the way when this comes up kind of, maybe like at about 25% of the novel when she's actually talking about this. And it's the first night when she has to share a bed with Pike because they got stuck in a snowstorm. And it's the first moment when these two really start letting down their walls. And I think that it's an incredible feeling when you meet another disabled person or chronically ill person who understands what you're going through, understands why you're guarded, why you have walls, and then you have to like learn how to be vulnerable around them so that you don't hurt yourself in terms of like accommodations and what they're doing together and everything. And I think that's why it's my favorite part, because they're reluctant to be in this relationship together, but then they suddenly realize like, oh, maybe this person who I've been resisting might actually be the one person who gets me the most. And so like most of my stuff that I write is really big on like disability community and finding your place. And I just love that that's the start of it.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Finding your people and people who understand, who you don't have to spend every time or every moment explaining what's wrong with you.
Right? Exactly. Yeah, and you don't have to spend time, performing positivity or over gratitude. That's also kind of a big theme in the book. And so you finally meet someone and you're not expecting them to be anyone who's going to relate to you at all, right? This is a famous person. What does he know? But it's amazing how they start, relating to each other emotionally.
I love that. Well, Sabina, I want to say thank you for being here. Do you have any final words before we go?
I put in my author's note, I always like to share this. I just think it's really important that if you're disabled, whatever stage of that you're in, that you remember that we also deserve joy, love, and connection in whatever form it takes.